Okay. Let's try and unpack this. Have you ever felt like there's maybe more to reality than what we just see? Like just sort of beyond our everyday experience, there's this whole other layer of existence kind of operating silently. Today, we're taking a real deep dive into what our source material calls a gated world. And it suggests that, much of what we think of as supernatural isn't just vague or random, but maybe part of an intricate hidden system.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here is that the source isn't just like telling spooky stories. It actually offers a highly structured framework for understanding these phenomena. Our mission for this deep dive really is to explore exactly how this other side might operate, where it comes from, and crucially, what its implications are for how we see reality, maybe even our own lives. This deep dive is really for you, the listener, especially if you've ever felt that kind of pull, that curiosity about unconventional events or, mysterious knowledge that seems kept just out of reach.
So this idea of a gated world, what does that actually mean? It sounds like, well, it implies that if you've ever had an experience right on the edge of the physical, you've sort of glimpsed what most people don't. It's like living in a huge house, maybe, but only using a few rooms because most doors are locked. And we're about to peek through the keyhole. This source really makes us ask some big questions, doesn't it? Like, how do these supernatural things really work? What are their rules? What's actually real in our universe, beyond our five senses? And maybe the big one, can we safely engage with that other world? Can we even, get out of this gated existence?
Well, if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, the source basically says all supernatural stuff, everything beyond what we immediately see and touch, comes from two main things: the system and existences. Think of the universe like this incredibly complex, self-regulating network, maybe like a giant computer. The system is the underlying code, the universal operating principles, what lots of traditions call Tao or destiny or karma. It's the basic logic. Then you have the existences. These are the active players, the supernatural entities themselves, like users or programs running on that system. So when you hear about people getting help through rituals or something, often they're essentially borrowing power from these users, these existences. And this underlying logic, this Tao, it actually operates on really simple principles fundamentally. But the tricky part for us humans is that we're mostly operating in this spiritual, energetic state that our everyday physical reality just doesn't fully grasp or translate easily.
Yeah.
It's kind of like trying to understand the whole internet just by looking at one single pixel. You just don't see the whole structure.
That makes sense. Yeah, our physical senses only catch a tiny slice. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, right? Our source digs into how this Dao, this system, extends into the supernatural world. And it starts with something pretty familiar, yin and yang.
Right. And the core idea here isn't just, opposites exist. It's that the whole universe, the macrocosm, constantly tries to balance itself out overall. But, and this is key, local imbalances are actually necessary for things to develop and grow. In the supernatural world, this means positive and negative energies, and the beings linked to them, they exist in equal measure and strength. So if you have good spirits, you absolutely have bad ones too, equally powerful. And this brings up a really crucial point for you listening. If you ever think about seeking help from, let's say, the unseen, the very first step always has got to be discernment. You have to know who or what you're dealing with. The source is pretty blunt, interacting without that ability, or just doing it for selfish reasons. Incredibly dangerous, because the karmic kickback is apparently immediate and harsh.
Wow. So it's not just good versus evil, but their tension is fundamental to how things work.
Yeah.
That's a powerful thought. And it leads to another idea people often get wrong, right? Equality.
Exactly. We tend to imagine or hope for a world of just absolute equality. But the source says, look, that's impossible. It would actually stop the universe's purpose, which is growth. So what does all beings are equal really mean then? It means that under the rules of Tao, every single individual faces the same rules and the same kind of tests for their own growth. Think of it like a really fair exam. Everyone gets the same questions, the same rules apply. But that doesn't mean everyone starts with the same resources or gets the same score, right? So higher beings, these enlightened ones, they don't just serve us or fix our problems, they guide. Sometimes they might even use karmic lessons to nudge us towards growth. Yeah. Because honestly, nobody else can take your exam for you. So inequality, in this view, always points to a deeper process going on: individual growth, assessment, learning.
That really reframes how you look at challenges and, well, unfairness in the world. It's not necessarily random. What else does the Tao tell us about this balance?
Well, development, whether it's your personal growth or the universe evolving, it absolutely needs both positive and negative forces, both sides of the coin. Adversity, the source actually says, is the best soil for growth. Pretty stark, huh? It even suggests that sometimes great evildoers might appear specifically to help great good arise, like they act as catalysts. And what's maybe even more profound is the idea that if one side, yin or yang, increases in power or influence, the other side has to increase as well eventually to restore the balance. This means the more influence someone has, whether they're human or, immortal, the bigger the test they're going to face.
Why? Why does that happen?
Because big power without the right character, without the wisdom to handle it, that just leads to disaster every time. It's a built-in check.
A cosmic check and balance,
Right.
always. That suggests an incredibly well-ordered system deep down, which I guess leads to the ultimate unifying principle you mentioned.
Yes, exactly. This concept points towards ultimate unity. The source talks about something called Taiyi. Taiyi is described as this ultimate absolute power. It integrates all the different realms. It's basically the creator and the personification of the Tao itself. It's Taiyi that ensures humility, makes sure resources are distributed fairly in the grand scheme, maintains equality in the rules of cultivation, and makes sure the whole karmic law system actually functions across all of existence. Without this ultimate integrator, this Taiyi, the universe would just fall into chaos, what the source calls a dark forest, everyone just fighting everyone else for resources. Utter destruction. The whole idea of morality, of right and wrong, would be totally meaningless without this overarching principle holding it all together.
Okay, let's talk about karma. It's a word we hear thrown around a lot,
Yeah.
right? Usually just meaning, what goes around comes around, simple cause and effect.
Yeah.
But this source seems to suggest there's a much deeper layer to it, something far more complex, often unseen. So what does this actually mean for us, living our lives in this supposedly gated world?
Well, the source points out that while simple karma, yeah, like planting a seed, getting a melon is pretty easy to grasp. A lot of the karma operating in the unseen world is just way beyond our normal perception. For example, someone might be doing bad deeds that nobody else sees, right? But spirits might observe them. Their intentions are known. If they actually enjoy causing harm, they start attracting negative entities. And over time, this can actually shift their own energy frequency, leading to maybe unforeseen accidents or difficult circumstances later on, perhaps even difficult reincarnations. Ordinary people, the source says, fail to connect these dots because all this activity, the spirits, the energy flows, it's just invisible to our normal senses. And this leads to disbelief, right?
Oh.
And then crucially, they continue doing things that just sow more negative karma, unknowingly.
That's quite a thought, the unseen consequences.
Right.
But then that brings up the obvious question. Why do some people who seem to do really terrible things never seem to face consequences, at least not in this lifetime? Why does it look like they just get away with it?
That's a really important question, yeah. And the source actually gives 6 fascinating reasons why karmic retribution might not show up immediately or, in the way we'd expect. It's definitely not a simple tit-for-tat exchange. Individuals are tangled up in these really complex, interconnected karmic webs. So first, some people might have an unusual origin or really strong spiritual help, powerful backing that kind of deflects minor payback, like a shield. Second, they might just possess a huge amount of innate personal energy, or what we might call luck. Their baseline fortune is just really hard to diminish quickly. Third, and this one's tricky, some evildoers might actually be playing a designated role. They're catalysts for other people's growth, so their own retribution gets delayed, or they might even get good outcomes during that phase to help them fulfill that specific karmic purpose.
Wait, so some bad people are almost like cosmic sandpaper? Designed to smooth out others that's hard to square with our usual sense of justice?
It absolutely is. It challenges our human perspective. And that leads into the fourth reason. Sometimes the suffering inflicted by a quote-unquote bad person is actually the recipient's own karma playing out, their own debt coming due. Now, the bad person probably still incurs new karma for their actions, mind you, but the universe can use even negative events to balance old scores, so to speak. Fifth, the timescale for karma can be really long, especially for collective karma like family karma or group karma. The effects might not show up for generations. It's a very long game. And finally, sixth, there's the greater purpose of collective karma. All life on Earth, the source says, is part of one big collective karmic journey. Major energetic forces affect everyone, and this collective retribution often serves a bigger educational purpose. Some lessons maybe humanity can only learn together. through shared experience, which is why the Source argues you can't truly isolate yourself from humanity's collective karma. We're all in it together. And there's a big caution here, too. Our usual understanding of good and evil deeds can be really flawed because we often lack the ability to see the unseen complexities. Many actions we think are good might unknowingly sow more negative karma down the line, just keeping us stuck in these cycles unless we really understand the underlying principles.
Okay, so if life isn't just random and there are these deep hidden systems like karma working away, then what's the point? What's the fundamental reason we're here? The Source gives a pretty mind-bending answer to this, doesn't it? That the core purpose of life itself is something called cultivation. And Earth, our planet, plays this unique central role as a kind of trial ground.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is this idea that all life, instinctively, is striving for ascension, moving towards higher dimensions, becoming more autonomous, more powerful. It's like, trees reaching for sunlight, or humans naturally trying to get better resources or improve their lives. It's built in. But, the Source asks, what if high-level energy was just freely available everywhere, randomly? It would lead to monopolies, chaos, right? The strong would just take it all. So the crucial question becomes, how can growth towards this higher energy be fair? The Source explains that high-level energy has two sides. A spiritual side, deep self-awareness, character, and an energetic side, actual supernatural power. If really powerful beings lacked restraint, lacked that spiritual side, they'd become what the Source calls self-proclaimed divine infants, basically tyrants leading to widespread suffering. So to prevent that, Taiyi, that ultimate integrator we talked about, set up strict assessment rules. You only receive high-level energy in proportion to your character, your spirituality, and the positive karma you can generate. And Earth, then, is deliberately positioned as this precise trial ground. Significant energy resources are projected here specifically to attract beings for this assessment process.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Seriously. So Earth isn't just, a rock with life on it. It's a meticulously designed training system, a cosmic assessment center. What are its core parts then? How does this whole intricate system actually work on the ground, so to speak?
Exactly. It's presented as a deliberate design. The Source outlines 7 key elements of this earthly cultivation system. First, there's the physical body, the human form itself. It's described as the most aesthetic and suitable form, reflecting perhaps a divine template. It existed as an idea even before physical humans. Second, lifespan. Our typical lifespan, around 100 years, is apparently intentional. It's short. This actually speeds up the evolution cycle of civilization and prevents any single entity or group from dominating for too long.
Wow. Okay, so our short lives aren't a bug. They're a feature designed to accelerate learning and keep things moving. That's radical. What else?
Third is the planet's energy system. The sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, everything stores and transmits energy in complex ways. These energy shifts manifest physically. Climate change, geology, ecology, and these physical changes constantly push evolution forward, refining all beings. Fourth, soul and reincarnation. After death, the core spirit, the primal spirit, is reborn into a new body to continue the refinement process. And for fairness, crucially, memory of past lives and past cultivation is wiped clean. Because otherwise, the strong, the already advanced, would always cheat by keeping their advantages. The weak would never get a fair shot at growth.
That finally explains why we don't remember past lives. It's built in for fairness. A level playing field each time. Okay, what about destiny? Is it all predetermined?
Fifth, the destiny system. The Source says at conception, a new soul gets imprinted with, spatiotemporal energy. It forms a kind of identity card that places them within the flow of collective karma. But, and this is important, it's not totally fixed. The Source emphasizes 7 parts fate, 3 parts human effort. Right. So even though memory is gone, your spiritual root, your fundamental will, maybe your core nature and your existing karma do carry over. These allow you to influence your future environment and opportunities through your choices now. Sixth, the cultivation system itself. Human life is explicitly called the most suitable system for this process of cultivation. The deeper why is maybe for those fated to understand, the Source hints. And cultivation isn't a solo journey. True ascension, getting to the next level, is determined by the rule makers, by Taiyi, not just by how good you think you are. And finally, 7th, there's the receptive resonance response system. This seems to involve managing wandering souls, maintaining order in the unseen realms adjacent to ours. Different cultures have different names for these spaces and the beings who administer them.
Okay, so we've got this intricate cultivation system called Earth. This naturally brings us back to the other players, right? These existences, the non-human beings. How do they fit into this grand design? What's their relationship with us, especially if we're all part of this system?
Right. The Source clarifies that all life, fundamentally originates from spiritual energy. That's the basic stuff that allows self-consciousness to emerge. Apparently, any tangible object can accumulate this energy over long periods. When the spiritual fragments inside an object reach a certain critical mass, a primal spirit, and an energy body form, basically the object becomes a spirit. If they're born from negative energy, they become demons or negative entities. From positive energy, nature spirits, that sort of thing. Now, these powerful beings, the ones the Source calls big shots, they have their own complex social structures, their own territories in the unseen. When humans want to connect with them, say for supernatural help, they need to use specific methods, symbols, words, rituals. It's described literally like dialing a specific phone number. These big shots aren't just hanging around waiting for anyone to call. You need the right protocol.
Okay, but why would they help? What's in it for them?
The Source is very explicit here. It says human energy is one of the best choices for them. Why? Because humans were, in its terms, created by gods and have a unique energy signature. And in these transactions, these exchanges, humans are always the commodity, never equals. So many practices we might see as beneficial cultivation, certain chants, visualizations, rituals might actually just be communication protocols set up by these big shots to make energy transfer easier. The Source gives a pretty stark warning. The energy that humans cultivate through these methods can ultimately be well consumed by these entities. Now, these powerful beings, they do have karma too, but they understand its rules far better than most humans. They often just wait for humans to initiate contact. Why? Because human desires are seen as insatiable. So humans take on the primary karmic burden by asking in the first place. The really sobering message here is ignorance is no excuse for avoiding karma. You still bear the consequences, even if you don't understand the full transaction. Only true conscious cultivation, the Source argues, can free someone from these potentially dangerous karmic entanglements.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. The idea of being a commodity. So if there are all these powerful beings out there, and some are described as righteous gods or positive forces, why can't good people or those really trying to cultivate properly just connect with them? Why can't they get benevolent help easily? Why is that connection so difficult?
Yeah, that's a crucial question, isn't it? And the Source gives four main reasons why connecting with genuinely righteous gods is incredibly difficult, almost impossible for most. First, these righteous gods apparently rarely leave behind easily accessible direct communication channels for individuals. They aren't setting up public phone lines, so to speak. Second, most human prayers, even when they sound noble, are fundamentally driven by personal desires, maybe wanting justice for oneself or help for one's group. Righteous gods, the Source says, simply do not engage in these kinds of selfish transactions. They don't interfere with individual human karma just because someone asks nicely.
So they won't just grant wishes, even if you frame it as being for a good cause, if it's fundamentally about your cause.
Exactly, that seems to be the idea. Third, many people who call themselves cultivators don't actually grasp the real meaning of cultivation yet. They might still be too self-centered, maybe too arrogant, or just not ready. This makes them effectively unteachable by these highly evolved entities. There's a fundamental mismatch in vibration or intention. And fourth, these righteous gods really only intervene in major collective karmic events, things that impact all of humanity, the whole planet. They operate on a much grander cosmic scale, not sorting out individual problems or grievances. Therefore, the Source concludes, real cultivation working on your own character, understanding, and spiritual wisdom is the only reliable path to true self-help and eventually liberating yourself from this gated world. It argues that our modern obsession with purely observable material facts traps us. It creates an information cocoon. And stuck inside that cocoon, we end up acting in ways that unknowingly create negative karma, just perpetuating the cycles of suffering because we can't see the bigger picture.
Right. So if we are kind of trapped in this information cocoon inside this larger gated world, and getting help from the truly righteous forces is incredibly rare, what's the way out? What's the ultimate key? The profound shift in perspective the Source offers as the actual path to freedom.
The Source's really powerful conclusion, the main takeaway maybe, is that the only way to break free from the information cocoon, from these endless karmic cycles, is by cultivating something it calls spiritual wisdom. Lingsai, spiritual wisdom. Spiritual wisdom, it says, is different from just being rational or intelligent. It naturally questions purely mechanical, materialistic ways of thinking. It's what allows a person to start perceiving and accessing the unseen to gain what it calls transcendental knowledge. That means knowledge of supernatural beings, of deep personal karma, of collective karma, and of the natural Tao itself, the underlying principles. And having this holistic understanding of the world, this spiritual wisdom, is what empowers you to solve both personal and collective problems effectively. It lets you plan a truly meaningful future, and ultimately, it's what gives you the qualification to, as the source puts it, jump out of Earth's karmic system and ascend. Spiritual wisdom grants the greatest possible autonomy, and it's acquired through dedicated conscious cultivation. It's not just for, dreamers or some chosen few. It's presented as the universal path for anyone, anywhere, who is seeking genuine liberation.
Wow. Okay. We have covered a lot of ground here, a real deep dive into this source's view of a hidden reality. From the underlying system and existences to the intricate workings of karma, yin and yang, Taiyi, and this incredible idea of Earth is a cosmic training ground for cultivation.
Yeah.
After exploring all that, what really stands out to you the most from this framework?
This deep dive, it really hammers home the idea that our physical reality, what we see and touch, is just one layer, maybe a very thin layer, and that there are these profound, unseen principles and forces governing absolutely everything, including our own lives, our choices, our future. It really challenges us, doesn't it, to look beyond the immediate, the obvious, and consider the deeper, often hidden implications of our actions, our intentions, even our thoughts. And it leaves us, and you, the listener, with a really vital question, I think. If cultivating the spiritual wisdom truly is the key to real autonomy, to escaping this gated world, how might you begin to cultivate a more complete, a more holistic understanding of your own reality, an understanding that goes beyond just what's immediately observable?